He humbity diddly hidely didum humbity diddlum diddly da do humbity diddle dee hidely didum humbity diddlum die. Right, boys and girls, where are we today?
Clackmannan.
Where about? Clackmannan. And where is Clackmannan?
It's one of the
wee towns in the Hillfoots. In fact, it was the first wee town in the Hillfoots, and this is the High Street. Now, the reason that this became one of the first places in the Hillfoots was because of the river, right? And it meant that there was, at the River Forth, there was a nice wee harbour, which is why it was so good for people settling here. Now, when we walk up this street here, what does it look like, boys and girls? Does it look old or new?
It looks a combination, really.
It looks a combination. It does look very old to me, though, doesn't it? I mean, look at those houses over there.
Yeah.
There's a very traditional Scottish
looks like they were
style.
built in like the 20th and 19th century.
I think they're probably built in the 19th century. Some of them maybe even before. In fact, that building down there, the big one with the chip shop in it, that was built in 1863, and that was just about the same time.
I noticed there was no cement.
Yep, that's right. And it was built around the same time as the railways. Look down that wee street there, the South Vennel.
Wow.
What do you think of that? Isn't that good?
Yeah.
Right, shall we make our way up and see what there is to see?
There's a small clock tower.
There's a small clock tower. What do you think that is?
I don't know.
You don't know?
We need it. Like a landmark of it as well.
It's a landmark, so I think there's probably going to be something up there that's going to tell us exactly what that is. What does it look like to you?
Clock tower?
It looks like a clock tower, yeah. And what's that on the top of it? What do we call that thing with the N and the S and the wee cockerel on the top?
I don't know actually.
You don't know, actually. Why don't we have a wee look? Why don't we have a wee look? I think that is called a weather vane. And that tells us which way the wind is blowing and stuff. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah? So let's make our way up and see what it says. Now, there's also something else here. Can you see what else is next to it? Shall we cross over? There's a plaque, yeah. And there's something standing right next to it as well. So let's go and see it.
Pillar?
A pillar, yeah. And what's that on the top of it?
Rock?
A rock. That's a very special rock. Do you know what that rock is? That is the stone of Mannan. This is where Clackmannan gets its name. So, what do you think clack means?
Stone. Big stone?
Stone. That's the Scottish word for stone. Now, what do you think Mannan means?
Manu.
Manu, that's right. Manu, the pagan god. So that's how Clackmannan got its name, from the stone. The stone of Mannan. Right, we'll have a wee read of the plaque and see what it says. So, the stone of Clack, originally placed at the foot of Lookabout Brae, was sacred to the pre-Christian deity Mannan, and as a unique relic of pagan times, it was raised to the large shaft in 1833. Now, next to that, we don't have a look at that, we'll look at that in a minute, the cross. The shaft of the cross, engraved with the Bruce arms, dates from the 17th century, when Sir Henry Bruce was sheriff, and the ball finial is not the ball finial is not original. The steps were renewed in 1949. The lower part of the shaft has been worn by prisoners' chains. And then this bit here must be the toll booth. So the toll booth was built in 1592 at a cost of £284. The toll booth comprising courtroom, prison, jailer's house and instruments of punishment. What do you think they had for? What do you think the instruments of punishment might have been?
Stretcher?
Well, they were the what happened was that anyone who had got into trouble was chained to that cross just round the corner there. Instruments of punishment extended some 40 feet east of the surviving belfry tower. So this must be the belfry tower. Previously, the sheriff court was held on the steps of the cross. So before we actually had the building, folk used this to be tried just right there in the middle of the street. Can you believe that? Previously, the sheriff court was held on the steps of the cross. Sir Lawrence Dundas gave the bell in 1765 and Mr. Francis Horn gave the clock. Right, let's go and have a wee look at this cross here and see what we can see. Now look at that. Can you see there at the bottom how it's all worn away? How cool is that?
Very cool.
And that's for all the men, oh, presumably just men, being chained up here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, shall we take a wee walk up the hill and see what we can see? Because I think there's something else quite interesting just up this wee street here. Now, is this Look About Your Bray maybe? Because this goes down the hill, doesn't it? Or maybe it's over there. Can we see any signs that tell us what that street is? No. Yeah. Oh, look up here at this sign. I think I know where we're going.
Mannan Tower.
Clackmannan Tower. Some lovely wee houses up here as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
And look at these ones over here. So these look like old wee miners' cottages. You see how they're very low. That's how a lot of the places, remember, you know, just up the road at Kennet, we drive past them and it's just a big long row of houses just like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what can we see at the back of them there? What's that? Just rising above them?
A very big building.
A very big building. What kind of building do you think that might be?
Maybe a church.
I think you might be right. Well done you. We're doing well today. I really like the look of these houses. They're beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah. I remember seeing one of these houses before.
Yep.
Which one of the windows touched the ground.
That's right. Some of that's right. So if they're on a very steep hill, some of the windows can touch the ground. I mean, look at these ones here. You can see that. This window's really low. Oh no, don't look in people's windows, please. And then this one's a bit higher, and then this one's a bit higher again. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, we'll have a wee look at the church. Yeah? Wow, look at that. That's fan-dabby-dozy. Well, are we going to the church or will we keep heading up towards the tower? What do you think? You want to go to the tower first?
Yeah.
Let's go and check it out, eh? And I mean, these look slightly newer houses, but they still look like they've been built in the same sort of style, don't they?
Yeah.
Does this remind you of anywhere coming up here?
Oh, cat.
Oh, a wee cat. Is there any types of plants you recognise, Chloe?
No, not quite.
Not really.
Yeah.
Morning. Let's keep going up the hill. Oh, there's some lovely houses here, isn't there? What else can we see? Now, we are heading uphill quite quickly, aren't we?
And usually it's windy, more windy.
It gets more windy the higher you go, but hopefully today it's not too windy.
Because the last time we tried to do this, we broke the stone and it was super windy.
That's right, the last time we came here, yeah.
So I might go on for it this time.
Now, do we know anything about the tower, boys and girls? Huh? Do we know anything about the tower? Who lived there or anything like that? Well, from what I know, it was originally habited by King David of Scotland, and I think that was in the 11th century at some point, and then it eventually came into, oh wait a minute, here's a sign. Let's have a wee look and see what it says. The Clackmannan Tower Trail. I like it. So, The Clackmannan Tower stands on King's Seat Hill. Why do you think it was called King's Seat Hill? Because it was the seat of the king. This is where he lived.
Yeah.
There may have been a royal residence. Oh, Malcolm IV, sorry, not King David. So here we go. There may have been a royal residence here in the reign of Malcolm IV, 1153 to 1165. A castle was mentioned in a charter of about 1250. And in 1330, so there we go. So King David came after King Malcolm. David II, that's who I was talking about. So he celebrated his 6th birthday here, while his steward settled the royal accounts. Now, what would his steward be? What do you think a steward was?
I don't know.
Assistant. So yeah, so if you were 6 years old, how good would you be at running a country and money and all that kind of stuff?
You'll probably spend it all.
You probably wouldn't be very good at it, and people probably wouldn't listen to you. So what they would have was something called a steward. So the steward settled the royal accounts. The royal connection is reflected in the name of the hill in King's Meadow and Craigree, the King's Rock. In 1359, David granted Clackmannan to his kinsman, Sir Robert Bruce. Now, have you ever heard of Robert Bruce before?
Yes.
Robert Bruce, he's quite a famous chap, isn't he?
Yeah.
Now, the earliest part of the tower, the lower stories of the main wing, was probably built soon after. The original entrance was at first floor and reached by an external staircase. In the 15th century, a building was raised to its present height and taller south wing was constructed. Right, in the late 16th century, a mansion was built to the west. Other changes during the 17th century, lower south turnpike stairs removed. So yeah, it's undergone quite a lot of changes. Now here is a lovely picture of it, isn't there?
Yeah.
So that is a drawing of it in 1788.
Whoever drew that is really good at drawing.
He's amazing, isn't he? Mm-hmm. Now, the fortunes of the Bruce family declined, and in 1708, David Bruce was declared bankrupt and sold the estate. Oh my word. Though he retained the tower. His son Henry was the last of the main line and supported the Jacobites in the 1745 uprising. So these guys would have been friends of Sir John as well, the guy who built Gartmore and had the silver mine, because they would have been on the same side during the rebellion. So this must have been a very rebellious area, mustn't it?
Yeah.
So he died in 1772, and his widow, Lady Catherine Bruce, lived in the decaying mansion until her death in 1791. The estate was bought by the Marquis of Zetland, but the tower and house were abandoned. By 1841, the house had been demolished. Part of the east courtyard wall survives with traces of the garden terrace, bowling green, and evidence for an outbuilding. Let's have a look. So Lady Catherine, possibly a pupil of David Allen of Alloa. Oh, cool. This remarkable old lady was famed for her charm, strong character. She was a lifelong Jacobite supporter and is holding the white rose of the Jacobites in the portrait, and hospitality. On the 26th of August 1787, she knighted Robert Burns, our national poet, with the sword said to have belonged to King Robert Bruce. She died after a fall at the great old age of 95. Well, that's pretty amazing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And let's just have a wee look of the area. So there's the Nebbit, that's where we went to the silver mine. Here's Gartmore Dam. And here's Alloa. Now, what this sign doesn't tell us about is how Clackmannan didn't become the biggest town around here, because early on, Clackmannan was the first place to sort of start up and be habited. But what happened was the tidal forces in the river changed. So rather, over time, Clackmannan became a less good place to have the harbour. And that just shifted along the coast slightly to Alloa. And that was one of the reasons it gave rise to Alloa as well. Now, as we come up here, we can see the castle. Oh, wow, indeed, eh?
Yeah.
Shall we just have a little scoot around and see what we can see here? Because when we go to the side here, we can see the ochels. Look at the clouds on the top of them there. Isn't that fantastic? So the tops of the ochels are actually covered just now.
Look at the sky.
I know, it's amazing, eh? So let's just have a wee look right along the ochels up there to the top at Muckert and the Crook. And then Columbia's clouds as far as we can see, and then we can go right around this way and we can see right out to Knock Hill. We can see the television aerials up on the top of the hill there. So let's just come back round this way and see what we can see. So let's take a wee walk up. That castle, well, it's called a tower, but what do you think it is? Do you think it's more a castle or more a tower?
More a castle.
Now, when we get up here, you'll really begin to see just why it was built here. Because you get some incredibly spectacular views from here right out across the Ochils, right down the Forth Valley to Stirling, and then out to the Forth as well. We can get a good view of that. What do you think it would have been like living up here? Crazy. Would you have liked it, Chloe? Whoa, so you saw massive bees. Hopefully we'll see some more wildlife up here.
I think the size of my thumb.
The size of your thumb?
Yeah, and I might find some hill-loving butterflies like the mountain ringlets.
Oh, mountain ringlets would be nice, wouldn't they?
They're like ringlets, but yet even more.
Right, let's go this way then. Look now, wow, look at this. Look at this. So we've got the River Forth just off to the side of us here.
No wonder I think here.
No wonder indeed, eh? I mean, look at that. He could see anyone coming up the river to come and attack him, or from round this side, he could see anyone coming over from Edinburgh.
Plus, he'd have a nice river view.
And he'd have a lovely river view, yeah, that's right. Certainly is, isn't it?
It's a bit windy.
It's a little bit windy, but it's not too bad, is it?
When we got to this altitude, it was super windy.
It's a bit bumpier here, isn't it? And look at that, right out in the Forth Valley, you can see all the factories, you can see the electricity pylons. Yeah.
Like some
I mean, look at that. Imagine getting out of your bed in the morning and be able to look up to the hills like that, eh?
wow. I thought this was a restoration of this place.
Well, I think they were planning on it, but it's a lot of work. I mean, let's just have a wee look up there. Let's just have a wee look up there.
But when they get the money, they should really just restore it.
Yeah, well, I think it's owned by Historic Scotland, or maybe in conjunction with the council now. So they are trying to do stuff to put it back into...
Like make the integrity stable.
Yes, well that's what they've done. They've made it stable, but the inside, I think, are quite ready.
And then you can work on the inside water, electricity, all the other stuff that you need.
Yeah. Oh, you can feel the wind kicking up a bit now, can't you?
It's cold.
It's a lot colder, yeah. And just look at all that farmland out in front of us. Look at that. Right, and then over there, right over here, you can see the Clackmannan Bridge, I think. Is it starting to spit? Right, what we'll do is we'll just get a wee photo of the Clackmannan Bridge. And a wee spin round. follow the river forth. Oh, lots of docking leaves, eh? Young docking leaves.
The stuff that makes your natal stings feel better.
Got ya. And there's Stirling Castle just hiding through the trees there. And maybe we'll just be able to see Wallace Monument there as well. Oh yeah, will we say goodbye now?